The city woke up every morning with two different faces. On one side were wide roads where luxury cars glided smoothly, their polished bodies reflecting the sunlight as if they belonged to another world. Tall glass buildings stretched toward the sky, housing powerful offices and wealthy families who never worried about their next meal. In those rich neighborhoods, life moved quietly behind high gates and guarded fences, far away from hunger and hardship. On the other side of the same city, life was loud, dusty, and unforgiving. Narrow streets were packed with people struggling to survive each day. Street vendors lined the roads with small wooden tables, selling food under the burning sun. The air smelled of smoke, sweat, and desperation. Here, every coin mattered, and every day was a battle between hunger and hope. Many people walked past these vendors without looking at them, as if poverty was something contagious. Yet even in this harsh world, kindness had not completely disappeared. It lived quietly in the hearts of people who owned almost nothing. Sometimes, those who suffered the most were the ones willing to share the little they had. In a city that rewarded wealth and power, compassion often came from the poorest corners, unnoticed and uncelebrated. Among those struggling souls was a young woman named Amina. She was in her early 20s, slim and soft-spoken, with tired eyes that had seen too much hardship for someone her age. Every morning, she set up her small roadside stall, selling simple food like rice, beans, and bread. It was not much, but it was her only means of survival. What she earned each day decided whether she and her family would eat or go to bed hungry. Amina lived hand to mouth, never knowing what the next day would bring. Some days were good, most were not. Still, she showed up every morning, trusting that hard work and honesty would keep her going. She had no idea that on one ordinary day, when her life felt no different from all the others, a single act of kindness would change her destiny forever. She did not know that the person she was about to help would turn her world upside down in ways she could never imagine. Grinning face, grinning face. Amina's life had never been easy, even from childhood. She lost her father when she was very young, and the memory of his face slowly faded with time. Her mother, once strong and hard-working, became sick after years of struggle, leaving Amina to carry responsibilities far beyond her age. There was no one else to help them. The little savings they had disappeared quickly, swallowed by hospital bills and daily needs. School became a luxury Amina could no longer afford. Though she loved learning, she was forced to drop out early, watching her dreams fade as survival became her only priority. Every day, Amina woke up long before sunrise. While the city was still quiet, she would rise from her thin mat, say a short prayer, and begin her long walk to the market. With very little money in her pocket, she searched for the cheapest ingredients she could find. Sometimes she had to beg traders to sell to her on credit, promising to pay after the day's sales. There were mornings when no one trusted her, and she returned home feeling defeated even before the day had begun. Her vending spot was nothing more than a small wooden table by the roadside. On it sat an old, blackened pot, cracked plates, and a few worn spoons. The sun beat down mercilessly, and dust from passing vehicles settled on her food no matter how hard she tried to keep it clean. The noise of horns, shouting, and engines never stopped. It was an exhausting place to spend long hours, yet she stood there every day, hoping for customers. The emotional pain was often worse than the physical hardship. Some people mocked her for being poor, speaking to her as if she were invisible. Others ate her food and walked away without paying, knowing she had no power to stop them. City officials sometimes chased her away, threatening to seize her pot and table. Still, Amina never raised her voice or cursed anyone. She believed deeply that kindness, even when it hurt, would one day bring blessings. Despite everything, her heart remained soft in a hard world. Grinning face, grinning face. That day began like any other, but something in the air felt heavier than usual. From the moment Amina set up her small table by the roadside, she sensed that it would be a difficult day. Hours passed, and only a few customers stopped to buy food. People walked by, glanced at her pot, and continued on their way. The sun climbed higher, burning her skin, while her food remained untouched. With each passing minute, hope slowly drained from her heart. By late morning, Amina realized that almost nothing had sold. She had not eaten a single bite since dawn, hoping she could save whatever remained for later. Her stomach growled loudly, twisting in painful knots. She felt dizzy at times and had to steady herself against her table. Still, she forced a small smile whenever someone looked in her direction, pretending she was fine. Hunger was not new to her, but that day it felt especially cruel. As she stared into her pot, a painful thought crossed her mind. If the food did not sell, she would have nothing to eat that night. Worse still, she needed to take something home for her sick mother, who depended entirely on her. The idea of returning home empty-handed filled her with fear and shame. She wondered how she would explain it, how she would watch her mother go to bed hungry again. The hunger became so intense that tears welled up in her eyes. Quietly, so no one would notice, Amina whispered a prayer. She asked for strength, not wealth. She asked for help, not comfort. Above all, she asked for guidance to do the right thing, no matter how hard it might be. She did not know why her heart felt so restless, as if something important was about to happen. As the afternoon approached and her pot remained nearly full, Amina had no idea that this painful day, which felt like one of her worst, was actually the turning point of her life. The choice she was about to make would shape her future forever, even though, at that moment, she felt more helpless than ever. Grinning face, grinning face. As the day dragged on, a frail old man appeared at the edge of the busy street. His clothes were torn and covered in dirt, hanging loosely on his thin body. His feet were bare, cracked from walking on hot roads, and his steps were slow and unsteady, as if every movement caused him pain. His face looked tired and worn, marked by suffering and long nights spent without rest. He looked like someone the world had forgotten, broken by time and hardship. People passing by barely noticed him. Some turned their faces away the moment they saw him approaching, pretending he did not exist. Others showed open disgust, muttering insults under their breath as they walked past. A group of children laughed at him, throwing small stones and mocking the way he walked. The old man said nothing in return. He simply kept moving, his eyes lowered, as if he had grown used to such treatment. Slowly, he made his way toward Amina's small food stall. She noticed him only when his shadow fell across her table. When he spoke, his voice was weak and shaky, barely louder than the noise of the street. There was no demand in his tone, only humility and exhaustion. He stood still, careful not to touch anything, as if afraid of being chased away. "My daughter," he said softly, looking at her with tired eyes, "I have not eaten in days." The words hit Amina like a blow. She froze, staring at the old man, then down at her pot. In that moment, everything became painfully clear. The food in front of her was all she had left. It was meant to be her meal, and her mother's too. Her hands trembled slightly as she realized what his request truly meant. Helping him would mean giving up her last hope for the day. Standing there under the burning sun, Amina felt the weight of a decision that would test her heart more than anything she had faced before. Amina stood frozen for a long moment, her eyes moving between the old man's face and the pot in front of her. Inside her mind, a painful argument began. If she gave him the food, there would be nothing left for her. She would go home hungry, her stomach burning through the night. Worse still, her sick mother would have nothing to eat. Fear tightened her chest, and for a brief second, she considered turning the old man away, just as so many others had done. As she struggled with the decision, a memory surfaced in her mind. She remembered her mother's voice from years ago, calm and gentle, speaking during one of their hardest times. "Never turn away the hungry," her mother had said. "Even when you have little, sharing opens doors that hunger never can." The words echoed in her heart, louder than her fear. Amina felt tears sting her eyes as she realized what she had to do. Slowly, she lifted her head and smiled at the old man. Without another word, she picked up a plate and served him the last remaining food in her pot. Every spoonful felt heavy, not because of regret, but because of the sacrifice it required. When she was done, the pot was empty. She poured him a cup of water and gently pulled a small stool closer, inviting him to sit and eat comfortably. The old man stared at the food in disbelief. His hands trembled as he accepted the plate. His eyes filled with tears, and for a moment he could not speak. Finally, in a broken voice, he asked her why she would do such a thing when it was clear she had nothing else. Amina looked at him quietly and replied, "Because you are human." There was no pride in her voice, only honesty. In that simple moment, her kindness shone brighter than any wealth. Though she did not know it yet, that decision became the turning point of her life, the very heart of a story that would soon astonish everyone. As soon as the old man began to eat, the surrounding vendors noticed what Amina had done. Murmurs spread quickly along the roadside. Some shook their heads in disbelief, while others laughed openly at her. A woman selling vegetables nearby called her foolish, saying she had no sense. Another vendor mocked her loudly, warning that kindness would not save her from hunger. They told her she would regret it when night came and her stomach remained empty. A well-dressed passerby, clearly wealthy, stopped for a moment to observe the scene. He looked at Amina with amusement and let out a short laugh. "You give food to beggars instead of saving yourself," he said mockingly. "Poverty has already defeated you, and now you help others fall with you." His words cut deeply, drawing more laughter from those around. Amina said nothing. She lowered her eyes and quietly wiped her table, even though there was nothing left to clean. Her hands moved slowly, betraying her exhaustion. She did not argue or defend herself. Deep inside, her heart ached, and tears threatened to spill, but she refused to let them fall in public. Hunger clawed at her stomach, growing sharper with every passing minute, yet she remained standing. The old man watched everything in silence as he ate. His eyes moved from one face to another, carefully observing the cruelty, the laughter, and the indifference around him. When his gaze rested on Amina, it softened. He noticed her trembling hands, her forced calm, and the quiet strength it took for her to endure such humiliation. Though he said very little, it was clear that he was taking everything in. In that moment, something deep within him shifted, as if he had just witnessed a rare and precious truth in a world that had long disappointed him. After finishing his meal, the old man did not leave immediately. Instead, he looked at Amina with a calm, thoughtful expression and began to ask her gentle questions. He wanted to know about her life, where she came from, and how she ended up selling food by the roadside. His tone was not intrusive, but curious, as if her story truly mattered to him. Amina answered honestly, holding nothing back. She spoke about her struggles, her sick mother, and the long days spent under the sun just to earn enough to survive. When he asked about her dreams, she hesitated for a moment, then smiled faintly. She admitted that she wished for a better life, not just for herself but for her mother as well. One day, she said, she hoped to open a small restaurant of her own, a place where people could eat good food with dignity, regardless of how much money they had. As the old man listened, something about his behavior felt unusual. His words were calm and full of wisdom, not desperate or bitter like those of many beggars. He spoke thoughtfully, choosing his words carefully, as though he had seen much more of life than his appearance suggested. At one point, he looked at her seriously and said, "This world rewards kindness, but not immediately. Many people give up too soon because they do not see the reward right away." Before leaving, he stood up slowly and placed his hand gently over his heart. He spoke a quiet blessing for her, wishing her strength and favor in all her efforts. Then he looked into her eyes and said they would meet again someday. Amina watched him walk away, unsure why his words lingered so deeply in her mind, unaware that this meeting was far from over. When the sun finally began to set, Amina packed up her empty pot and wooden table and started the long walk home. Her steps felt heavier than usual, and her body was weak from hunger. She had nothing to carry with her, no food, no money, and no explanation ready for what awaited her at home. The streets that had been noisy during the day now felt quiet and lonely, reflecting the emptiness in her heart. As soon as she entered their small room, her mother looked at her with concern. She noticed the absence of food immediately and asked if something had gone wrong. Amina forced a smile and lied gently, saying she had already eaten at the stall and was not very hungry. She told her mother not to worry and helped her lie down, hiding the truth behind calm words. The guilt of lying hurt her almost as much as the hunger itself. Night fell slowly, wrapping the room in darkness. Amina lay on her mat, her stomach aching and her mind restless. Hunger gnawed at her, making it hard to sleep. Tears slid silently down her face as doubts crept into her thoughts. She wondered if she had been foolish, if kindness was a mistake in a world so cruel. For the first time, her faith felt shaken. In the quiet of the night, Amina whispered a prayer. She asked God if kindness was truly worth the pain it brought. She asked if helping others when she had nothing would ever lead to something good. There were no answers, only silence and the sound of her own breathing. Exhausted and empty, Amina eventually drifted into a restless sleep, her stomach still aching, unaware that by morning, Her life would never be the same again. Amina had barely slept when the morning arrived. Just as the first light of dawn crept into the street, a deep rumbling sound shattered the usual quiet of the neighborhood. Loud car engines echoed between the small houses, growing closer by the second. Amina sat up in shock as unfamiliar black SUVs rolled into the narrow street, their polished bodies standing out sharply against the poor surroundings. Doors opened, and people began to step outside their homes. Neighbors gathered in small groups, whispering to one another, confused and afraid. Some wondered if the police had come. Others feared something terrible had happened. No one in that area was used to seeing such expensive vehicles, especially not so many at once. The presence of wealth and authority felt threatening in a place where survival was already difficult. Well-dressed men stepped out of the SUVs. Some wore dark suits and sunglasses, their posture firm and alert, clearly security guards. Others carried briefcases and spoke quietly among themselves, looking like lawyers or important officials. Their expressions were serious as they scanned the crowd. One of them raised his voice and asked a question that instantly drew everyone's attention. "Is this where Amina lives?" The sound of her name made Amina's heart pound violently. Fear rushed through her body. Her hands began to shake as she slowly stepped forward, wondering what she could have done wrong. Thoughts raced through her mind. Had someone accused her of something? Was she in trouble for selling food on the street? She felt her mother's weak hand grip her arm, trembling with worry. Before Amina could speak, one of the luxury cars at the center of the convoy began to move. The door opened slowly, revealing the soft interior of the vehicle. Everyone fell silent, holding their breath. Amina stood frozen, her heart pounding, as she stared at the open door, unaware that the truth about the old beggar was about to be revealed. From the open car door stepped out a man who looked nothing like the beggar Amina had met the day before. He was clean, well-dressed in an elegant suit, and carried himself with calm confidence. His hair was neatly groomed, his shoes polished, and his presence alone commanded respect. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people struggled to recognize him. Amina's breath caught in her throat. Her legs felt weak, and for a moment, the world around her seemed to spin. She stood frozen, unable to move or speak, staring at the man in disbelief. Then their eyes met, and recognition struck her like lightning. It was him. The same old man she had fed with her last food. The beggar smiled gently, the same smile he had worn under layers of dirt and torn clothes. Amina felt her knees buckle, and if not for a neighbor who caught her, she would have collapsed to the ground. One of the well-dressed men stepped forward and spoke loudly for everyone to hear. He announced that the man standing before them was the owner of the city's biggest company, a billionaire whose name was known across the country. Murmurs turned into loud whispers, then into stunned silence. No one could believe that the weak, hungry beggar from the street was one of the richest men in the city. The man raised his hand, and the crowd fell quiet. He began to speak, his voice firm yet calm. He explained that he had disguised himself to walk among ordinary people because he had lost faith in humanity. Surrounded by wealth and power for so long, he wanted to see how people treated those who had nothing to offer in return. Day after day, he had been ignored, insulted, and chased away. Then he turned to Amina and pointed at her. He told everyone that she was the only person who had helped him without expecting anything. She gave him food when she had nothing left, choosing compassion over survival. His words echoed through the silent street. In that moment, Amina realized that her painful sacrifice had been seen, and her simple kindness had reached far beyond what she could have imagined. The billionaire took a step closer to Amina, his expression softening with warmth and respect. He spoke about the kind of reward that money could never truly repay but still insisted she deserved. In front of everyone, he announced that Amina would receive a large sum of money, enough to lift her and her mother out of poverty forever. Gasps filled the air as people struggled to understand what they were witnessing. He continued, explaining that she and her mother would be given a new home in a safe and comfortable neighborhood, far from the hardship they had endured for so long. Amina's hands trembled as she listened, tears streaming freely down her face. As if that were not enough, he promised to sponsor her education, ensuring she could return to school and learn everything she had been forced to abandon. Her dreams, once buried under survival, were suddenly alive again. Then he spoke of her quiet confession from the previous day. He remembered her dream of opening a small restaurant, a place built on dignity and kindness. With a gentle smile, he offered to fully fund that dream, providing everything she needed to start and grow her business. The words felt unreal, like something from a distant fantasy, and Amina could barely stand under the weight of such generosity. The crowd reacted instantly. Those who had mocked her, insulted her, and laughed at her kindness now stepped forward, shame written on their faces. Some begged for forgiveness, others lowered their heads, unable to meet her eyes. The same voices that once called her foolish now praised her goodness. Through her tears, Amina found the strength to speak. She forgave them all, holding no bitterness in her heart. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she cried openly, not for the reward itself, but for the truth she had learned, that kindness, even when painful, never truly goes unseen. Months passed, and Amina's life transformed in ways she had never imagined possible. Where she once stood under the burning sun with a small wooden table, she now owned a clean and well-organized food business. The restaurant was modest but welcoming, filled with the comforting smell of freshly cooked meals. Customers came not only for the food, but for the warmth they felt the moment they walked in. True to her heart, Amina employed other poor women like herself, giving them a chance to earn an honest living and regain their dignity. Her mother's health improved greatly. With proper medical care, good food, and a peaceful home, the sickness that once weakened her slowly faded. Laughter returned to their home, replacing years of worry and pain. Amina often watched her mother smile and felt overwhelmed with gratitude for how far they had come. Across the city, people talked about Amina's story. Some shared it with admiration, others with disbelief, but all recognized the power of her kindness. Her name became associated not with wealth, but with compassion. The billionaire kept his promise and became her mentor, guiding her through business decisions and encouraging her to grow without losing herself. He admired her strength and often said her heart was richer than any fortune. Despite the changes in her life, Amina remained humble. She never forgot the days of hunger and humiliation. Every evening, she made sure extra food was set aside for those who could not afford to pay. Homeless people and struggling families knew they could always find a meal at her door. Wealth did not harden her heart, it softened it even more. In giving back, Amina proved that true transformation is not